The proposition Vikram Shah's fingers drummed impatiently against the polished mahogany of his desk as he reviewed the investor report for the third time. His expression remained impassive, but the slight twitch at the corner of his eye betrayed his irritation. "These Japanese investors are refusing to move forward," he said, voice cutting through the tense silence of his corner office. Their representative specifically mentioned concerns about leadership stability. Rajiv Mehta, his CFO and oldest associate, nodded knowingly. "It's the marriage thing again. Traditional values. They want to see you settled before entrusting you with $50 million. Vikram leaned back in his chair, gazing out at the Mumbai skyline that stretched before him. At 38, he had built ShahTech from nothing into a billion-dollar empire. Yet these potential investors were hesitating because he wasn't married? Ridiculous. "I don't have time for dating, let alone marriage," Vikram said flatly. "The Nakamura group meeting is in 3 months. That's hardly enough time to find someone, let alone convince them I'm genuinely interested." Rajiv cleared his throat. "There might be another solution. Something temporary, but convincing." Vikram raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "A contract marriage. Find someone who needs financial security. Offer them a deal. They play the role of devoted spouse. You get your family image. The contract ends when it's no longer needed." The idea settled in Vikram's mind like a perfectly aligned puzzle piece. Efficient, practical, exactly his style. "I need someone who already understands corporate life. Someone discreet," Vikram mused. "And they need to be believable as my choice of partner." Rajiv hesitated before speaking. "What about Prisha Kapoor from HR operations? She's intelligent, professional, and she's been with the company for 3 years." "The single mother?" Vikram recalled the slender woman with serious eyes who occasionally delivered reports directly to his office. "Yes. She's raising her son alone and working 2 jobs. Financial motivation would be compelling for her." Vikram nodded. "Set up a meeting. Private. End of day." Prisha Kapoor stared at the email summoning her to the CEO's office with a mixture of confusion and dread. In 3 years at ShahTech, she had spoken directly with Vikram Shah fewer than 10 times. Each interaction had been strictly professional and brief. She adjusted her simple blue sari and checked that her braid was neat before knocking on the imposing double doors. "Enter," came the crisp command from within. Vikram stood by the window, silhouetted against the setting sun. Without turning, he gestured to a chair. "Please sit, Ms. Kapoor." Prisha perched on the edge of the seat, hands folded tightly in her lap. "Have I done something wrong, sir?" He turned then, studying her with calculating eyes. "No. In fact, I have a proposal that could solve problems for both of us." For the next 15 minutes, Prisha listened in stunned silence as Vikram outlined his proposition. A marriage contract, lasting 18 months, with a substantial payment upon completion. She would move with her 7-year-old son Arjun into his estate, accompany him to business functions, and present the image of a happy family. "Why me?" she finally asked, finding her voice. "You're intelligent, presentable, and have a reputation for discretion. You also have clear motivation." His eyes flicked to the photo of Arjun on her phone case. "Your son's education would be fully provided for. Private school through university." Prisha felt her cheeks flush with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. "My son is not leverage, Mr. Shah. I'm simply stating facts. You work a second job teaching evening classes. Your salary here barely covers your rent. I'm offering financial security." The bluntness stung because it was true. Since her ex-husband, Nikhil, had abandoned them 3 years ago, every day had been a struggle to provide for Arjun. "This would be a business arrangement only," Vikram continued. "Separate bedrooms, no personal entanglements. After 18 months, we part ways amicably." Prisha stood, needing to move. "And if I refuse?" "Then I find someone else." He shrugged. "This isn't personal, Ms. Kapoor." She thought of Arjun's asthma treatments, the better school he deserved, the crushing weight of her constant financial anxiety. "I'll need time to think," she said. "You have until tomorrow. The contract is on the table." As Prisha left the office, her mind raced with calculations and consequences. By the time she picked up Arjun from his after-school program, she had made her decision. That night, after tucking her son into bed, Prisha called the number Vikram had provided. "I accept your proposal," she said when he answered, "but I have conditions of my own." There was a pause, then a hint of surprise in his voice. "I'm listening. Arjun comes first, always. Any decisions affecting him require my approval, and we present a united front to him. He's been abandoned once already." "Agreed. And we need a genuine friendship clause. If we're going to convince others, we need to at least respect each other." The silence stretched longer this time. "Very well. I'll have the revised contract sent over." As Prisha ended the call, she gazed at her sleeping son, his small chest rising and falling peacefully. "I hope I'm doing the right thing," she whispered, gently brushing hair from his forehead. She didn't know then how completely this business arrangement would transform their lives, and the heart of the man who claimed not to have one. Walls. Of glass, the wedding was a carefully orchestrated affair, intimate enough to seem personal but lavish enough to make headlines. Only 40 guests attended the ceremony at Vikram's cliffside villa in Alibag, most of them business associates who looked mildly surprised to discover their perpetually single CEO had been secretly dating someone from his own company. Prisha wore a deep crimson lehenga with gold embroidery that Vikram's stylist had selected. She looked stunning, though she felt like an actress in a costume rather than a bride. When Vikram slipped the diamond-studded wedding band onto her finger, his touch was clinical, his smile practiced for the photographers. "You're doing well," he murmured as they posed for pictures, his hand resting lightly on her waist. "Very convincing." Arjun, dressed in a miniature sherwani, watched the proceedings with wide, uncertain eyes. At 7, he was old enough to understand something significant was happening, but too young to comprehend the complexity of the arrangement. "Is he really going to be my new papa?" he had asked Prisha that morning as she helped him dress. She had hesitated before answering. "Vikram is going to be part of our family now. We'll be living in his house and people will call him your stepfather. But it's okay if you just want to call him Vikram for now." Now, as the reception wound down, Prisha watched her son cautiously approach Vikram, who was speaking with investors near the bar. "Mr. Vikram, sir." Arjun's small voice barely carried over the music. Vikram turned, seemingly startled to be addressed by the child. "Yes? Thank you for the robot toy, it's really cool." Arjun clutched the expensive gift Vikram had mechanically presented that morning, clearly selected by an assistant. "You're welcome," Vikram replied stiffly, before turning back to his conversation. Prisha felt a pang of regret. What had she gotten her son into? A life of material comfort but emotional coldness? The Shah mansion was a modernist marvel of glass, steel, and polished concrete, perched on 2 acres of manicured grounds in Juhu Beach. The staff, a housekeeper, cook, gardener, and driver, greeted them with practiced deference when they arrived the day after the wedding. "Your quarters are in the East Wing," Vikram explained, leading them through the cavernous living room. "I've had the room adjacent to yours prepared for Arjun." Prisha took in the stark minimalism of the space, all clean lines and neutral tones, more like a luxury hotel than a home. There were no family photos, no personal mementos, nothing that revealed anything about the man who lived there. "It's very elegant," she offered. "It's functional," Vikram replied. "Mrs. Desai, the housekeeper, will show you around. I have calls to make." With that, he disappeared into his home office, the heavy door closing with finality behind him. Over. The next 2 weeks, they settled into an awkward routine. Vikram left for the office before dawn and returned late, sometimes after Arjun was already asleep. Prisha, now officially on leave from her HR position, spent her days helping Arjun adjust to his new school and learning to navigate the mansion that felt nothing like home. They rarely saw Vikram except at carefully choreographed public appearances, restaurant openings, charity galas, and one board member's anniversary party where they performed the role of happily married couple with practiced ease. You two make such a lovely couple, gushed Mrs. Malhotra, the board member's wife. How did you meet? They delivered their rehearsed story seamlessly. Prisha had worked at Shawtech for years before Vikram finally noticed her during a company retreat. A whirlwind romance had followed, kept private until they were certain of their feelings. I knew she was special when I saw how she prioritized her son despite all her responsibilities, Vikram added, surprising Prisha with the unscripted addition. That kind of dedication is rare. Later, in the car ride home, Prisha studied his profile in the dim light. That was a nice touch about Arjun. Vikram kept his eyes on the road. I observed that women respond well to men who appear to value children. It makes the narrative more convincing. Prisha felt foolish for thinking there might have been sincerity in his words. Of course. Everything. Calculated for maximum effect. Something flickered across his face, perhaps annoyance. This arrangement works because we both understand it's a business transaction, Ms. Kapoor. Or should I say Mrs. Shah? Prisha is fine when we're alone, she said quietly. And I understand the terms perfectly. The first crack in Vikram's facade appeared 3 weeks into their arrangement. Prisha was awakened at 2 a.m. by the sound of Arjun coughing violently. His asthma, triggered by the sea air, had flared up badly. She fumbled for his inhaler in the dark, but it wasn't on the nightstand, where it should have been. Panic rising, she searched the bathroom, then his backpack. Arjun, where did you put your inhaler? She asked, trying to keep her voice calm as her son wheezed painfully. School bag, he managed between coughs. Prisha suddenly remembered. She had transferred it to his school bag, which was downstairs in the kitchen. She rushed into the hallway, nearly colliding with Vikram, who stood in his silk pajamas looking disoriented. What's happening? He demanded. Asthma attack. His inhaler is downstairs. I need to... Stay with him, Vikram ordered, already moving toward the stairs. He returned moments later, with not just the inhaler, but a glass of water and the emergency kit Prisha kept with Arjun's backup medication. Prisha administered the medicine, and gradually Arjun's breathing eased. Throughout the episode, Vikram remained in the doorway, watching intently as she soothed her son back to sleep. He should see a specialist, Vikram said as they stepped into the hallway. I know someone at Lilavati Hospital, Dr. Gupta, the best pulmonologist in Mumbai. Prisha blinked in surprise. That's thoughtful, but we have a regular doctor at the clinic. This is not negotiable. I'll have my assistant set up the appointment tomorrow. His tone brooked no argument, but there was something beneath the commanding exterior, a hint of genuine concern that puzzled her. Why do you care? She asked before she could stop herself. Vikram's expression shuddered. The boy lives in my house now. His health affects the household. He turned to leave, then paused. My father had respiratory problems. I recognized the symptoms. It was the first personal detail he had ever shared with her. The next morning, Prisha found a state-of-the-art air purifier installed in Arjun's room and another in the main living area. Vikram made no mention of them when he emerged for breakfast, dressed impeccably as always in a tailored suit. The Nakamura group has confirmed their visit for next month, he said, scanning emails on his tablet. We'll host a dinner here. Rajiv will brief you on the cultural expectations. Prisha nodded, pouring tea for both of them. I'll make sure everything is perfect. Vikram glanced up, seeming to notice her for the first time. She wore a simple cotton salwar kameez, her hair tied back in a loose braid, nothing like the polished image she presented at their public appearances. You look rested, he said awkwardly. Despite being up half the night, that's kind of you to say. She offered a small smile. For a moment, something unguarded passed between them. Not warmth, exactly, but a recognition of shared experience. Then Arjun bounded into the kitchen, breaking the moment. Good morning. Can I have pancakes, Mama? Of course, Beta. She ruffled his hair. Good morning, Mr. Vikram, Arjun added, with the careful politeness of a child addressing an adult he wasn't yet comfortable with. To Prisha's surprise, Vikram set down his tablet. Good morning, Arjun, Are you feeling better today? Arjun nodded. My chest doesn't hurt anymore. Good. The air purifier should help. If it doesn't, we'll try something else. The boy's face lit up at being directly addressed. Did you put that in my room? It makes cool sounds like a spaceship. The faintest smile touched Vikram's lips. I suppose it does. As Prisha prepared breakfast, she watched the awkward interaction between her son and her pretend husband. For all his calculation and control, Vikram seemed genuinely unsure how to talk to a child, as though Arjun were a foreign species he had never encountered. Yet he had rushed to help in the middle of the night without hesitation, like the mansion itself. Vikram Shah was all glass walls, transparent enough to see there was something within, but designed to keep everyone at a distance. Prisha wondered, not for the first time, what had shaped him into the man he was, and whether those walls could ever truly come down. Unexpected moments, Taiwan, Prisha repeated, looking up from the travel itinerary Vikram had just handed her. The whole family is expected to go? Vikram adjusted his cufflinks, a nervous habit she'd begun to recognize. The Nakamura group wants to see us together before finalizing the investment. They're traditional, family values and all that. Their representatives will be meeting us in Taipei. But Arjun has school, Prisha objected. And international travel wasn't part of our original agreement. I've already spoken with his headmaster. They'll provide assignments for the week we're away. Vikram's tone was matter-of-fact, but something in his expression suggested he anticipated her resistance. The contract does specify accompanying me to business functions as needed. Prisha set the itinerary down. A function is an evening event, not a week-long international trip. The education clause in our agreement ensures Arjun's schooling through university. Missing 1 week won't impact that. She felt manipulated even as she recognized the logic in his argument. You should have consulted me first. I'm consulting you now, he replied, his voice softening slightly. The jet leaves Friday morning. You'll both have first-class accommodations. Bring formal attire for the reception and business dinner. When he left the room, Prisha sank onto the sofa. 3 months into their arrangement, and she still felt like an employee rather than a partner, albeit an employee with a diamond ring and a mansion address. Yet there had been small changes. Vikram now occasionally joined them for dinner, making stilted conversation with Arjun about school or the latest superhero movie. He had installed a small basketball hoop in the garden after noticing Arjun watching NBA games. These gestures were awkward, but seemingly genuine. Mama, are we really going on an airplane? Arjun appeared in the doorway, eyes wide with excitement. Clearly he had been eavesdropping. Prisha sighed, unable to resist his enthusiasm. Yes, Beta, we're going to Taiwan. With Mr. Vikram? Yes, with Vikram. Arjun grinned. Cool. Can I sit by the window? The Gulfstream G650 banked gently over the Taiwan Strait, offering a spectacular view of Taipei's skyline emerging through scattered clouds. Prisha had expected to fly commercial, but apparently Vikram's definition of first-class accommodations meant his private jet. Arjun pressed his face against the window, marveling at the sight. It looks like a city from the future. Seated across from them, Vikram glanced up from his laptop. Taipei 101 was once the tallest building in the world, he remarked. I toured it when I was not much older than you. Really? Arjun turned his attention to Vikram with newfound interest. Did you travel a lot when you were a kid? Something flickered in Vikram's eyes, a shadow of memory. My father had international business. I accompanied him sometimes. Was it fun? Arjun persisted. It wasn't educational. Vikram returned to his laptop, clearly ending the conversation. Prisha gave her son a subtle shake of her head, recognizing the closed door of Vikram's past. In 3 months of living together, she had learned almost nothing about his childhood or family. There were no relatives at their wedding, no old photos in the house, no casual mentions of parents or siblings. The mystery of Vikram Shah's background remained intact, and Prisha had stopped asking. Their arrangement didn't require personal histories, only a convincing present. The Grand Majestic Taipei lived up to its name, a palatial hotel with panoramic views and service so attentive it bordered on intrusive. Their suite occupied half of the 42nd floor, with 3 bedrooms, a living area, and a dining room where they were served breakfast the first morning. The Nakamura representatives won't arrive until tomorrow, Vikram explained over coffee. Today I have meetings with our Taiwan suppliers. You and Arjun can explore the hotel or visit the National Palace Museum. I've arranged a guide. We can manage on our own, Prisha replied, buttering toast for Arjun. I've downloaded a translation app, Vikram frowned. The city can be disorienting for first-time visitors. We'll stick to the tourist areas, she assured him. Arjun wants to see the pandas at the zoo. The pandas are awesome, Arjun contributed, mouth full of scrambled eggs. They're endangered. Vikram looked like he wanted to argue, but instead pulled out his wallet and handed Prisha a black credit card. For expenses. The car service is available all day, just call the concierge. After he left for his meetings, Prisha and Arjun set out to explore. They visited the zoo, rode the Maokong gondola, and sampled street food at Shilin Night Market. By evening, they returned to the hotel exhausted but happy, laden with small souvenirs and photos. They found Vikram in the suite's living room, tie loosened, still on a conference call. He held up one finger in the universal signal for just a minute as they entered. Yes, Mr. Tanaka, I understand the concerns, he was saying, but I assure you the production timeline is realistic. Yes, my team has verified the supply chain redundancies. He pinched the bridge of his nose, fatigue evident in his posture. Prisha ushered Arjun toward his room to unpack their purchases. When she returned, Vikram had ended his call and was staring out at the city lights, looking uncharacteristically tense. Difficult negotiations? She ventured. He turned, seeming surprised by her interest. Supply chain issues. Nothing critical, but the timing is problematic with the Nakamura meeting tomorrow. He noticed the shopping bags in her hand. Successful expedition? Very. Arjun loved the gondola ride. She hesitated, then added, You look like you could use a break. We brought back some mango-shaved ice from this amazing place we found. Arjun insisted we get extra for you. Surprise registered on his face. He did? He did. Prisha smiled. He's also bursting to tell you about the red pandas. They're apparently even cooler than the regular ones. A small, almost imperceptible softening appeared around Vikram's eyes. I should finish these reports. They'll still be there after ice cream, she said firmly. 20 minutes, Vikram. Even CEOs need breaks. To her astonishment, he followed her into the dining area where Arjun was already setting out the desserts. Mr. Vikram, the pandas were amazing. Did you know they have false thumbs? Arjun launched into an excited recounting of their day. Vikram listened with surprising attentiveness, asking occasional questions that delighted the boy. Prisha watched the interaction with curiosity. This was a different Vikram, still reserved, but engaged, the corporate mask momentarily set aside. It sounds like you're becoming quite the zoologist, he commented when Arjun finally paused for breath. What's a zoologist? Someone who studies animals, their behaviors, habitats, biology. Arjun's eyes widened. That's a real job, getting paid to learn about animals? Indeed. Some of them travel the world doing research in places like the Amazon rainforest or the African savanna. Wow. Arjun sat back, clearly considering this new career possibility. I think I'd like that better than being a businessman. Vikram raised an eyebrow. Oh? No offense, Arjun added hastily. It's just you always look tired and have to talk on the phone all the time. Prisha nearly choked on her ice cream, mortified by her son's bluntness. Arjun, that's not polite. But to her surprise, Vikram laughed, a genuine sound she had never heard before. No offense taken. Your assessment is quite accurate. The moment hung between them, unexpectedly warm and authentic. Then Vikram's phone buzzed, and the spell was broken. He excused himself to take the call, and the corporate mask slipped back into place. The typhoon wasn't in the forecast when they arrived in Taipei, but weather systems could be unpredictable in this region during autumn. What began as moderate, Rain that morning had escalated to howling winds and torrential downpours by afternoon, forcing the postponement of the Nakamura meeting. They can't even reach the hotel from the airport, Vikram explained, ending a call with Rajiv. All flights are grounded. We're looking at a minimum 24-hour delay. Prisha glanced out the window at the sheets of rain lashing against the glass. At least we're safe here. Is there anything I can do to help with preparations for when they do arrive? Vikram shook his head, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. Everything was ready, now we wait. He glanced at his watch. The hotel has canceled all activities due to the storm. Room service is operating, but the restaurants are closed. Arjun, who had been building a fort out of sofa cushions in the corner, looked up. So we're stuck here all day? That's boring. Prisha gave him a warning look, but Vikram surprised her by addressing him directly. What would you suggest we do instead, Arjun? The boy thought for a moment. We could play games. Mama and I always play games when it rains at home. Games, Vikram repeated as though the concept was foreign. I packed some card games in Arjun's carry-on, Prisha offered, and I'm sure the hotel has board games we could borrow. Vikram glanced at his laptop, clearly calculating how much work he could accomplish instead, but the storm had knocked out the hotel's internet connection, leaving only spotty cellular data. Very well, he said finally. Games it is. What began as a reluctant concession to circumstances evolved into an unexpected afternoon of competitive Uno matches, with Arjun gleefully slapping down draw 4 cards whenever Vikram seemed close to winning. Prisha ordered room service and they ate burgers and fries while playing. The formal dining table transformed into Game Central. You're cheating, Vikram accused after Arjun won his 3rd consecutive game. Am not, the boy protested, giggling. Your sleeves are suspiciously bulky. I think you're hiding cards. Arjun dramatically rolled up his sleeves. See? No cards. Perhaps I was mistaken. Vikram conceded with exaggerated suspicion that made Arjun laugh harder. Prisha watched the exchange with amazement. Was this the same man who had proposed a loveless contract marriage just 3 months ago? The same executive who rarely finished a meal without taking a business call? Later, after Arjun had exhausted himself with games and fallen asleep watching cartoons, Prisha found Vikram on the suite's balcony. The storm had calmed somewhat, though rain still fell steadily. He's asleep? Vikram asked as she joined him. Out cold. Too much excitement. She leaned against the railing beside him. You were good with him today? I haven't seen him laugh like that in a long time. Vikram kept his eyes on the city lights blurred by rain. He's an exceptional child. Very perceptive. He is, she agreed, warmth blooming in her chest at the genuine compliment. Thank you for today. You didn't have to indulge him. It was... He paused, seeming to search for the right word. Refreshing. I don't remember the last time I played a game without strategic business implications. The admission revealed more than he perhaps intended. Prisha studied his profile, noting the relaxed set of his shoulders, so different from his usual tense posture. You never talk about your childhood, she observed cautiously. His expression closed slightly. There's little to discuss. I find that hard to believe. Vikram was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was distant, as though recalling something buried deep. My father was much like me, focused on business, legacy, empire building. Games were for developing strategic thinking, not enjoyment. Travel was for education and building connections, not exploration. He shrugged. It was a privileged upbringing by any standard. But not a particularly warm one, Prisha ventured. His slight grimace confirmed her suspicion. Warmth wasn't valued in our household, results were. The pieces began to align in Prisha's mind. His detachment, his discomfort with emotional displays, his obsession with contracts and clear terms. He had been shaped by a childhood where affection was conditional on achievement. And your mother? She asked softly. Something flickered across his face, an old pain. She left when I was 8. Decided the life my father offered wasn't worth the emotional cost. His jaw tightened. She was right, as it turned out. The revelation hung between them, intimate and unexpected. Prisha resisted the urge to touch, his arm in comfort, sensing he would recoil from the gesture. "I'm sorry," she said simply. Vikram straightened as if suddenly aware he had revealed too much. It was a long time ago. He checked his watch. "We should get some rest. Tomorrow we'll be busy once the Nakamuras arrive." Just like that, the moment of vulnerability was over, the walls back in place. But as he turned to go inside, he paused. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for today. Arjun is fortunate to have you as his mother." Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving Prisha alone on the balcony with the fading storm and the unsettling realization that the man she had agreed to pretend to love was becoming less of a stranger with each passing day. The Nakamura meeting had gone brilliantly. After the typhoon delay, Vikram and Prisha had presented such a convincing image of marital harmony that Mr. Nakamura himself commented on how refreshing it was to see a power couple with such balance and mutual respect. The contract was signed, the investment secured, and Shawtech's expansion into East Asian markets was officially underway. That should have been cause for celebration. Instead, on the flight home from Taipei, tension hung in the air between Vikram and Prisha like an invisible barrier. Something had shifted during their time in Taiwan, moments of genuine connection interspersed with awkward retreats. Vikram had revealed parts of himself, then seemed to regret the vulnerability. Prisha had glimpsed the man beneath the CEO facade and found herself thinking about him in ways that complicated their arrangement. Arjun, oblivious to the adults' discomfort, was happily occupied with a new tablet Vikram had purchased for him at the Taipei airport. For educational purposes, he'd insisted, though it came preloaded with games. "You should get some rest," Vikram said, breaking the silence, as the jet cruised at altitude. "You barely slept last night." Prisha nodded, though sleep was unlikely given her churning thoughts. "I was reviewing the reception details. The Nakamuras seemed pleased." They were. "The investment is secured." His tone was businesslike, but he hesitated before adding, "Your handling of Mrs. Nakamura was particularly impressive. Her husband values her opinion highly." "I enjoyed talking with her. She's quite knowledgeable about art." Vikram's lips quirked in the ghost of a smile. "You didn't tell me you studied art history before switching to business management." Prisha raised an eyebrow. "You looked into my background?" "Of course, before proposing our arrangement." He glanced at Arjun, then back to her, "Though I may have focused primarily on practical matters rather than personal interests." "Practical matters meaning my financial struggles and single-parent status," she translated. Vikram had the grace to look slightly abashed. "Yes." Prisha leaned her head back against the seat. "Well, now you know. I wanted to be a curator before reality intervened." "Your reality has changed," he pointed out. "You could pursue it again if you wished." The suggestion caught her off guard. "I suppose I could," she said slowly, "though I'm not sure how that fits into our arrangement." Vikram's expression became unreadable. "The arrangement has served its purpose. The investment is secured." Prisha felt a sudden chill. "Are you saying you want to end the contract early?" "No," he said quickly. "That's not what I meant." He frowned, seeming frustrated with his own inability to articulate his thoughts. "Simply that its terms need not restrict your personal development." Before she could respond, the pilot announced their initial descent into Mumbai, and the moment for deeper conversation passed. The envelope arrived 3 weeks after their return from Taipei, delivered by courier to the mansion while Vikram was at the office. Prisha recognized the sender. Immediately, Nikhil Sharma, her ex-husband. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside was a formal letter from Nikhil's lawyer, requesting a custody reevaluation for Arjun based on significantly changed circumstances. The letter cited Prisha's new marriage and lifestyle as justification for revisiting the custody arrangement that had granted her full custody 3 years earlier. Prisha sank onto the sofa, letter clutched in her hand. This was exactly what she had feared when she first accepted Vikram's proposal, that the appearance of financial stability would draw Nikhil back into their lives. After abandoning them when Arjun was 4, Nikhil had reappeared 18 months later, suddenly interested in fatherhood once his new business venture had succeeded. The custody battle had been brief but bitter, with the judge ultimately recognizing Nikhil's extended absence and reluctance to pay child support. Now he wanted to try again, using her marriage to Vikram as leverage. The irony was painful. The arrangement meant to secure Arjun's future might now threaten it. When Vikram returned home that evening, Prisha was waiting in his study, the letter laid out on his desk. "We need to talk," she said as he entered. Vikram loosened his tie, taking in her serious expression. "What's happened?" She gestured to the letter. "My ex-husband is challenging custody of Arjun." Vikram read the document quickly, his expression darkening. "Based on your marriage to me?" "Yes. He's claiming that now that I have financial stability and a new family unit, custody should be shared." Her voice caught. "He abandoned us, Vikram. For nearly 2 years, Arjun didn't see or hear from him. Now he wants to play father again." "This is a nuisance claim," Vikram said dismissively. His timing makes his motivation transparent. Transparent, but potentially effective. Indian family courts have been increasingly favoring shared custody arrangements, especially when both parents can provide stable environments. Prisha paced the room. "Nikhil has remarried. He has a successful business now. On paper, he looks like a reformed man who deserves another chance with his son." Vikram watched her movements, his expression calculating. "What do you need from me?" The question brought her up short. She had expected resistance, perhaps even suggestions that this was outside the scope of their agreement. Instead, he was offering support. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "Our marriage isn't real. If that comes out during custody proceedings..." "It won't," he said firmly. "As far as anyone knows, our marriage is completely legitimate. But the original contract is locked in my private safe and the digital copy is encrypted." Vikram sat at his desk, already typing an email. "I'm contacting Leela Patel. She's the best family law attorney in Mumbai." Prisha stared at him. "You don't have to do this. The contract doesn't obligate you to get involved in my personal legal matters." Vikram looked up, his gaze intense. "Arjun lives in this house. He has for 6 months now. His well-being affects this household." She recognized the echo of his words from months ago, when he had first shown concern for Arjun's asthma. But this time, she sensed something deeper beneath them. "Thank you," she said quietly. He nodded once, then returned to his email. "We'll meet with Leela tomorrow. Bring any documentation from the previous custody hearing." Leela Patel's office occupied the top floor of a sleek building in Bandra. The attorney herself was a formidable woman in her 50s with shrewd eyes that missed nothing. "So," she said after reviewing the case files, "the ex-husband abandoned his child for nearly 2 years, fought custody when it suited him, lost, and now wants to try again because Mrs. Shah has married a wealthy man." She looked between Vikram and Prisha. "And you two met at work, correct?" "Yes," Prisha confirmed. "I worked in HR operations at Shah Tech," Leela made a note. "And when did your relationship begin?" Prisha hesitated, aware of the practiced story they had created for public consumption. "About 9 months ago," Vikram answered smoothly, "though we kept it private initially due to the company hierarchy." "Understandable," Leela nodded. "Mr. Sharma will likely try to characterize your relationship as opportunistic, a wealthy CEO and his employee. We need to establish the genuine nature of your connection." Prisha felt a flutter of panic. Their relationship was the opposite of genuine. It was literally a business transaction. "We have photos from company events going back 3 years, Vikram offered. "Prisha attended many of the same functions I did, though we weren't involved then." "Good. We'll need those along with any personal correspondence, emails, messages that show the development of your relationship." "Another hurdle?" Their digital correspondence had been almost entirely related to the contract. I'll also need to interview both of you separately, Leela continued, to prepare for the kinds of questions opposing counsel might ask. Couples with nothing to hide have nothing to fear from this process. Prisha felt the walls closing in. Their carefully constructed facade wouldn't withstand serious legal scrutiny. And the boy? Leela asked. How has he adjusted to your marriage? Well, Prisha said honestly, Arjun and Vikram have developed a good relationship. Leela turned her attention to Vikram. And how would you characterize your relationship with your stepson, Mr. Shah? Something shifted in Vikram's expression, a softening that Prisha had only recently begun to recognize. Arjun is an exceptional child, he said. Intelligent, curious, kind. Our relationship has grown gradually, but meaningfully. He's become, he paused, seeming to search for the right words, an important part of my life. The sincerity in his voice startled Prisha. This wasn't the rehearsed response of a man playing a role. This was genuine feeling. I see, Leela said, studying him carefully. And if the court were to ask about your long-term plans for Arjun, he will have every advantage I can provide, Vikram stated without hesitation. Educational opportunities, travel experiences, cultural exposure, but more importantly, stability and consistency, things his biological father failed to offer. Leela nodded, apparently satisfied. That's the approach we need to take, not attacking Mr. Sharma directly, but emphasizing the stable, nurturing environment you've created together. She closed her notebook. I'll need to meet Arjun as well to assess how he's adjusting. Of course, Prisha agreed. As they left the attorney's office, Prisha was quiet, lost in thought. In the elevator, she finally spoke. You were very convincing, in there. Vikram's gaze remained on the descending floor numbers. Everything I said was true. The simple statement hung between them, loaded with implications neither seemed ready to address. The preliminary custody hearing was scheduled for the following month. In the intervening weeks, Prisha and Vikram prepared documentation, met with Leela multiple times, and maintained their public appearances as a devoted couple. Behind closed doors, however, something had changed. The careful distance Vikram had always maintained was gradually diminishing. He joined them for dinner more often, helped Arjun with science projects, even accompanied them to the boys' school functions without being asked. One evening, after Arjun had gone to bed, Prisha found Vikram in his study reviewing documents for the custody case. You don't have to do all this, she said from the doorway. Leela says we have a strong case even without the extra research you're doing. Vikram looked up, fatigue evident in his eyes. I prefer to be thorough. You've already done more than the contract requires. She entered the room, taking the chair opposite his desk. Why? He set down the document he'd been reading. Does it matter? The outcome benefits all of us. It matters to me, she insisted. 6 months ago, you proposed a business arrangement with clear boundaries. Now you're fighting to keep my son in your life. I need to understand why. Vikram stood, moving to the window that overlooked the garden where he had recently installed a telescope for Arjun's budding interest in astronomy. When I proposed our arrangement, he said slowly, I saw it as a simple transaction. You would provide the appearance of family stability. I would provide financial security, efficient, mutually beneficial. And now? Prisha prompted when he fell silent. He turned to face her, his expression more open than she had ever seen it. Now I find that the appearance has affected the reality, meaning that I did not anticipate how Arjun would change my perspective, or how watching you with him would. He stopped, frustration evident in his furrowed brow. I'm not accustomed to discussing these matters. Try, she encouraged softly. Vikram drew a deep breath. My father built a business empire and lost his wife and son in the process. I never understood his choices until I built my own empire and realized I had followed the same path. success, but isolation. His gaze met hers directly. Until you and Arjun arrived, the admission hung in the air between them, weighted with implications. What are you saying, Vikram? I'm saying that I don't want to lose what we've built here, contractual origins notwithstanding. His voice was low, intense. I'm saying that the thought of Arjun being taken away to live with a man who abandoned him once already is unacceptable. To me. Prisha felt her heart quicken. Because of the contract? No. He stepped closer. Because I care about him. And about you. The words seemed to surprise him as much as her. For a moment, they stood in silence, the admission transforming, the space between them. I don't know what that means for us, Prisha finally said. This began as a business arrangement with an expiration date. Plans change, circumstances evolve. He hesitated, then added, feelings develop even when we intend otherwise. Before she could respond, his phone rang. Rajiv, calling about an urgent matter with the Taiwan production facility. The moment broke and Vikram answered the call, slipping back into his role as CEO. Prisha left him to his work, her mind reeling. Their carefully structured arrangement was unraveling, revealing something far more complicated beneath. The question now was whether either of them was brave enough to acknowledge what was really developing between them, and what would happen when they faced Nikhil in court, where the truth of their relationship would be tested in ways they hadn't anticipated. As she paused outside Arjun's room, checking that he was sleeping peacefully, Prisha realized that what had begun as a calculated business decision had evolved into something neither of them had bargained for. A choice between maintaining the safe distance of their contract or risking their hearts on something real. Beyond contract, the Mumbai family court was smaller than Prisha had expected, the wood paneling and formal portraits creating an atmosphere of solemn tradition rather than the modern justice she had imagined. She sat beside Vikram in the front row, their shoulders nearly touching as they waited for the proceedings to begin. Are you ready? Vikram asked quietly, his hand briefly covering hers on the bench between them. Prisha nodded, though her stomach churned with anxiety. Across the aisle sat Nikhil with his new wife Sonia, a stylish woman who kept glancing at her phone, and their legal team. Nikhil caught Prisha's eye and gave a small, confident smile that made her blood boil. He had always been certain of his ability to charm his way through any situation. Remember? Leela Patel murmured, leaning forward from behind them. Let me handle the questioning. Answer honestly but concisely. This judge appreciates authenticity over performance. Prisha's anxiety spiked at the word honestly. Their entire marriage was built on a contract, not love. How authentic could they really appear? As if sensing her thoughts, Vikram's hand found hers again, this time giving it a reassuring squeeze. The gesture was small, but steadying, and Prisha found herself clinging to his support. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s named Justice Chawla, entered the courtroom, and everyone rose. As the proceedings began, Leela presented their case first, establishing the history of Nikhil's abandonment, his sporadic involvement since then, and the stable home environment Prisha and Vikram had created for Arjun. Then came the part Prisha had been dreading: cross-examination. Nikhil's attorney, a sharp-featured man named Malhotra, approached with a predatory smile. Mrs. Shah, how long had you known your current husband before marrying him? We worked at the same company for 3 years before our relationship began, Prisha answered carefully. And the relationship itself? How long did you date before this rather hasty marriage? Leela objected to the characterization, but the damage was done. The judge's eyebrow had lifted slightly. We were together for about 3 months before getting engaged, Prisha replied, sticking to their rehearsed timeline. 3 months, Malhotra repeated skeptically. Quite a whirlwind for a man known for his methodical business approach and a woman who was, until recently, struggling financially. Again Leela objected, and this time the judge sustained it, instructing Malhotra to stick to relevant questions. Mrs. Shah, isn't it true that your marriage coincided conveniently with Mr. Shah's need to secure international investment for his company? Investors who reportedly valued family stability? Prisha felt her breath catch. How had he discovered that connection? I'm not involved in my husband's business decisions, she replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. But you are aware that the Nakamura Group, which invested heavily in Shawtech shortly after your marriage, places significant emphasis on traditional family values. Objection, Leela stood. Mr. Malhotra is attempting to insinuate impropriety without evidence. I'm establishing motive, Your Honor, Malhotra countered smoothly. The timing of this marriage is relevant to its authenticity, which directly impacts the stability of the home environment. I'll allow it, Justice Chawla. The witness will answer. Prisha felt trapped. A direct lie under oath was unthinkable, but the truth would destroy their case and possibly Vikram's business reputation. The timing was coincidental, she said carefully. Our relationship developed independently of business considerations. Malhotra smiled, clearly unconvinced. Let's move on. In the 6 months since your marriage, you've continued to maintain separate bedrooms in Mr. Shah's mansion. Is that correct? Prisha froze. How could he possibly know that? The staff was discreet, and no visitors would have access to the private wings of the house. Before she could formulate a response, Vikram stood abruptly. Your Honor, I request permission to address the court. Justice Chawla considered him with a level gaze. This is unusual, Mr. Shah, but I'll allow it. Vikram buttoned his suit jacket as he approached the front of the courtroom, his posture impeccable as always. But Prisha noticed something different in his eyes, a vulnerability she had glimpsed only in their most private moments. Your Honor, he began, his voice clear and measured. I recognize that the circumstances of my marriage to Prisha have been characterized as suspicious. The timing, the apparent suddenness of it, I understand how it might appear, especially to those who know my reputation as a businessman. He paused, and Prisha held her breath, having no idea what he planned to say. The truth is that I have spent most of my life believing that emotional attachments were a liability. My own parents' marriage was a study in dysfunction. My father prioritized business success above all else, and my mother eventually left us both. His voice remained steady, but Prisha could see the cost of this public revelation in the tension of his shoulders. I followed my father's example. I built a company, accumulated wealth, and told myself it was enough. I approached relationships, when I bothered with them at all, as transactions with clear terms and exit strategies. He glanced briefly at Prisha, including initially my relationship with Prisha. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Leela looked alarmed, clearly wondering if her client was about to confess to a sham marriage in open court. But something unexpected happened, Vikram continued. Living with Prisha and Arjun, I began to understand what I had been missing. I witnessed the bond between mother and son, unconditional, unwavering, built on years of mutual trust and sacrifice. I saw how Prisha had created stability for Arjun, despite Mr. Sharma's abandonment and the financial hardships that followed. He turned slightly to face Nikhil, his expression hardening. And I recognized that what Mr. Sharma discarded so carelessly was, in fact, invaluable. Nikhil shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding Vikram's gaze. Your Honor, I cannot deny that our marriage began unconventionally, but I can state with complete honesty that what exists now between us, and between me and Arjun, is genuine. Vikram's voice softened. We have separate bedrooms because I promised Prisha we would move at her pace, given her previous experience with marriage. But make no mistake, we are a family in every way that matters. He returned to his seat beside Prisha, whose eyes had filled with tears. His public acknowledgement of their unorthodox beginning was risky, but his vulnerability had an authenticity that no rehearsed testimony could have achieved. Justice Chawla studied Vikram thoughtfully. Mr. Malhotra, you may continue your questioning. But the attorney seemed thrown off balance by Vikram's unexpected confession. His subsequent questions lacked their earlier sharpness, and Prisha found her confidence growing as she answered truthfully about her relationship with Vikram, how it had evolved, deepened, become something neither of them had anticipated. When Arjun was brought in to speak with the judge privately, Prisha watched him walk confidently into the chambers, his small shoulders straight, his expression serious. Whatever happened, she was proud of the resilient, thoughtful boy he had become. After Arjun's interview, Justice Chawla called a recess to review the evidence before making her determination. Prisha, Vikram, and Leela retreated to a small conference room to wait. That was a significant risk, Leela said once they were alone, addressing Vikram. Admitting the unconventional nature of your relationship's beginning could have backfired spectacularly. Continuing the pretense would have been more dangerous, Vikram replied. The judge values authenticity, as you said. We needed to offer some. What made you decide to speak up? Prisha asked quietly. Vikram met her gaze directly. I couldn't let you perjure yourself, and I couldn't let them question what we've become regardless of how we began. The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. Before she could respond, a court officer appeared to summon them back to the courtroom. Justice Chawla did not keep them waiting. As soon as everyone was seated, she delivered her ruling. Having reviewed the evidence and spoken with the child in question, I find that Arjun Sharma's best interests are served by maintaining his current primary residence with his mother and stepfather. She looked directly at Nikhil. Mr. Sharma, while I acknowledge your desire to play a larger role in your son's life, your history of inconsistent involvement cannot be overlooked. The court grants you visitation rights on alternate weekends, with the possibility of re-evaluation in 1 year, contingent upon your consistent participation. Prisha closed her eyes briefly in relief, feeling Vikram's hand find hers again. Mrs. and Mr. Shah, the judge continued, the stability and support you have provided for Arjun is commendable. Mr. Shah, your candor about the evolution of your family dynamic was noted and appreciated by this court. A faint smile touched her lips. It seems that sometimes the most meaningful relationships begin in unexpected ways. As they left the courthouse, Prisha felt lighter than she had in months. Nikhil had already departed with his wife, his expression thunderous. Leela excused herself to handle the final paperwork, leaving Prisha and Vikram alone on the courthouse steps. Thank you, Prisha said simply, for everything you did in there. Vikram nodded, his usual composure returning now that they were back in public. We should collect Arjun from your mother's. He'll want to hear the news. But as they walked toward the waiting car, Prisha stopped suddenly. Wait, before we go back to normal life, I need to know what happens now. Vikram turned to face her. What do you mean? The contract, the arrangement, the custody issue is resolved, the Nakamura investment is secured. Do we just continue, as we have been, pretending for the next year until the contract ends? Something flickered in Vikram's eyes. Uncertainty, perhaps even fear. Is that what you want? I asked you first, she countered, unwilling to risk exposing her feelings without knowing his. Vikram glanced around at the busy street, then gently guided her to a quieter spot beneath a flowering jacaranda tree. What I said in court wasn't just for the judge's benefit, he said quietly. These past months have changed me in ways I never expected. They've changed me too, Prisha admitted. But I need clarity, Vikram. No more business terms or careful phrases. Just the truth. He took a deep breath. The truth is that I don't want our arrangement to end. Not after a year. Not ever. His voice grew softer. I want what we've been pretending to have. A real marriage, a real family. With you and with Arjun? Prisha felt tears spring to her eyes. You've never said anything like that before. I've never felt anything like this before, he replied, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from her face. I spent my life avoiding attachment, convinced it would make me weak or distracted like my father claimed. But being with you and Arjun hasn't weakened me. It's given me something to care about beyond quarterly reports and market share. Prisha smiled through her tears. That's quite a transformation for a man who proposed marriage as a business transaction. I'm still learning, he acknowledged with a rueful smile. But I'd like to keep learning. With you, if you're willing. Instead of answering with words, Prisha rose on tiptoe and kissed him gently. It was their first real kiss, not the brief, formal touch of lips at their wedding ceremony, but a genuine expression of the feelings that had been growing between them. When they parted, Vikram looked slightly dazed. Is that a yes? Prisha laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. It's a yes, Vikram, but on one condition. Name it. We burn that contract. No more terms, no more clauses. Just us figuring it out day by day like normal people. He smiled. A full, genuine smile that transformed his usually serious face. Deal. 6 months later, the Shah mansion had undergone a transformation as significant as its inhabitants. Gone were the stark minimalist furnishings and the cold, impersonal atmosphere. In their place were colorful textiles, family photographs, and the comfortable clutter of a home actually lived in. Vikram had moved his belongings into the master suite he now shared with Prisha. Arjun's room had expanded to include a study area, with the telescope relocated to a specially built platform outside his window. The formal dining room where they had once sat in awkward silence now regularly echoed with laughter and conversation. On this particular evening, they were celebrating Arjun's 8th birthday. The garden had been transformed with lanterns and streamers, and a dozen of his school friends raced around playing elaborate games while their parents chatted in small groups. Prisha found Vikram by the dessert table, watching Arjun with evident pride as the boy explained the constellations to his friends using the new astronomy book Vikram had given him. He hasn't put that book down since this morning, she said, slipping her arm through Vikram's. He's going to be a scientist, Vikram predicted, or perhaps an explorer. He has that curiosity that drives discovery. Whatever he becomes, he'll know he's loved, Prisha said softly. By both of us. Vikram turned to face her, his expression serious. I received a call from Rajiv today. The European expansion is moving faster than expected. They want me in Frankfurt next month to oversee the launch. Prisha nodded, hearing the unspoken question. How long? 3 weeks, possibly 4. Then we'll need to pack warm clothes, she said simply. Arjun has always wanted to see snow. Surprise flickered across Vikram's face. You want to come with me? All of you? Of course, that's what families do. She smiled up at him. Unless you'd rather go alone. No, he said quickly, pulling her closer. No, I wouldn't. I've had enough of being alone to last a lifetime. As the sun set over the garden, casting golden light, across the scene Arjun broke away from his friends and ran toward them, his eyes bright with excitement. Papa, can we light the cake now? Everyone's getting hungry. The word Papa still brought a look of wonder to Vikram's face each time Arjun used it, though it had become natural for all of them over the past months. Of course, Vikram replied, ruffling the boy's hair affectionately. Lead the way, birthday boy. As they gathered around the cake, a spectacular confection shaped like the solar system, Prisha watched Vikram help Arjun blow out the candles, their heads bent close together, and marveled at how completely her life had transformed. What had begun as a business arrangement between two practical strangers had evolved into something neither of them could have designed or contracted for, a genuine family built on mutual respect, shared experiences, and ultimately, love. Later that night, after the guests had gone and Arjun had finally fallen asleep surrounded by his new treasures, Prisha found Vikram on the terrace, gazing at the stars. Happy? She asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. He turned in her embrace, drawing her close. More than I ever thought possible. His voice held a note of wonder. I signed that contract thinking I just needed a wife for business. I never imagined I was signing up for all of this. All of what? She teased. A real partner. A son who calls me Papa. A home that actually feels like one. He brushed his lips against her forehead. A heart that's finally found its place. As They stood together beneath the vast canopy of stars. Prisha thought about the unlikely path that had brought them here. From a cold business proposition to a warm embrace on a perfect night. Sometimes, she reflected, the most beautiful outcomes grew from the most unexpected beginnings. And sometimes what began as a contract could become the most binding connection of all. One written not on paper, but in the shared moments, small kindnesses and quiet revelations that transformed strangers into family.